We're back.
Yes, we are. We are back.
We are a duo today.
Yeah, not a power trio yet.
There's a chance that Steve may be with us in a little bit, but he got stuck at work and was running late and was trying to get home as quickly as he could. So, episode number
2010?
10.
The human factors of our fantasy world.
The human factor shows.
Yep.
Yeah. There's my dogs.
Production value has started already.
My dogs. All right. Well, why don't you got some shout outs or anything you want to do before we get started?
Well,
I'm gonna mute myself for 2 seconds and shut the door so the dogs
okay, yeah, shut the door and I'll burn a little clock here. I don't know. Shout out to the Haltham Theater here in crazy funky town Fort Worth. They just keep having better and better shows all the time. If you ever get to Texas, please let me know. I will introduce you to the Haltham Theater. If you're in the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth area, we saw some killer bands there and learned a few things, including this new band, Tyrannical Deception. I guess they're from Oklahoma, but anyway. And then we started having this back and forth battle with, is it better to, we could probably do an episode on this. Is it better to have merch or is it better to have music available to your fans after you play? Well, all they had was merch, and our friend Donnell Blair, who's friend of the show, we just released his Pass the Ammunition double EP limited tour edition. So if you want a copy, let me know. It's pretty cool. I've tweaked the sound to make it a little better. Blended the two EPs together, and they're working on a full length. And they went on right before the mighty Iron Jaw with Rick Perry and Clay McCarty and all the boys, and they sounded probably better than I've ever heard them. So look for stuff by Iron Jaw. More Texas metal. Man, we seem to have a corner on the market at times, or so it seems. But I'm sure Brazil and Germany and England could argue, or Canada, or any country. But I tell you what, man, for a state in the United States, we seem to have quite a few bands. But other than that, man, it's good to be happy and healthy again. It's been cold and nasty and rainy and snow and ice and, just like an Immortal video or something. It's like an Arctic storm. But anyway, here we are in the nice confines of our homes and protected from the elements. What you got there, Scott? And I can't hear you because your mic's not on.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, there you go.
I said a friend of mine was in Texas and lives in Texas and went to see Watchtower playing. Got me a shirt.
Oh, wow.
So I like Watchtower quite a bit.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. And
or the shirt because they're kind of considered a progressive metal band.
They are, and
they're a bit hard to put in a cube in my.
Yeah,
I keep calling thrash metal. I'm like, I don't know about that.
That's the thing. I hear people lump them into that category, and I just don't see it. I mean, and once again, prog is prog metal or prog rock, progressive. It's hard to categorize, and as I started to pull a few items out, I always go back to the starting point of where things became progressive, and then maybe we can talk about that. Maybe we can define that a little better, because I had a hard time just coming up with a genre per se.
Yeah, I mean, prog rock and prog metal, I think, are two different animals in its own thing, but most prog metal bands were very much inspired by the prog rock bands of the late 60s and early 70s, and into the 70s and into the 80s. But I mean, you can take two different prog bands and they don't sound anything alike. So it's You know what I mean? I mean, even something as simple as and everybody knows these two bands, but everything as simple as Pink Floyd and Genesis. Those two bands are both considered prog rock, but they don't sound anything alike. I mean, not even close.
I think what I boiled it down to, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I just think that when you get away from the normal 4/4 time, um, and then start adding elements that sound like like whether it be classical, whether it be jazz, um, whether it be rock licks and metal, or vice versa. Uh, I mean, I guess that's progressive. I think when you step out of the normal course of the A B A B A C and then AB format, and you become like Abacab, and you do something outside the box, um, that C element, I think, makes it progressive. And like you said, I I see Floyd as more of an ambient rock band than a progressive band, but they do have elements like progressive. Um, but I don't know. I dove into the collection, and I found some things that
Yeah, I pulled a few favorites. I pulled a few things that I've been listening to recently. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't want to just get into it and we'll start talking about.
well,
I don't know. I'm assuming you pulled some of the '70s stuff, right? Because that's kind of where the
yeah,
prog
in
rock music
fact,
began.
and yeah, see, Gary's already brought up Dream Theater. Oh yeah, and by the way, Chris Bell, Perceived, he's in a band called Perceived. A very cool band. They just released their second EP, which I did the art for, and very progressive and cool. And they were on my list of other bands that I didn't have anything vinyl to show you. But when I think of prog, I think of jazz fusion, and this Return to Forever Romantic Warrior is a searing blend of rock and roll and jazz, made to sound like something that we had never heard before in the 70s. There were little snippets of this, um, like, say, with bands like Colosseum, or German bands like Embryo. Um, but anyway, I mean, that's the Return to Forever is where I start on all this stuff. In fact, um, as I was going through the collection, I just I mean, everything had an element to it. I already mentioned the Colosseum. If you're not familiar with them, it was John Heisman, who was a great jazzy drummer, and who played rock music, and was everyone. He had played with everyone from Gary Moore to Brian Auger, and but very eclectic stuff. Uh, but very jazzy, yet rock oriented. So once again, you know, are the Doors are the Doors a prog rock band?
I've never considered them such, but that's what I was thinking. There's so many bands. I mean, I was thinking Deep Purple. Or Deep Purple a progressive rock band? Most people would say no, but they definitely had some progressive elements in their music. That's for sure.
Sure, sure. Well, once again, music in general is basically an opinion based things, and things can sound different to other people. I mean, I stood in front of a stage and listened to 20 bands over the weekend, and some of them I thought were great, and some of them I thought weren't. And I'm not gonna mention names, but you know, uh, if someone sitting next to me was like raving about the ones I didn't think were that great, I'll tell you right now, this right here, this Lonesome Crow by Scorpions, this is as progressive in fact, this might be more of a jazz fusion record than it is a rock record. So if you really want to dig deep into the Scorpions before they were what we've known them today, check this out. This is one of my favorite records. I listen to it at least once a month, if not more often. And there's a couple, and that's Michael Schenker, um, just shredding, but in more of a jazz setting. But I don't know. What did you pull? I know you pulled a ton.
Well, I did. I didn't pull a ton, but I did pull some, and I just thought we'd get this one out of the way right away.
Why? That's one of the you know what, you talk about a great example of of what we're talking about, and here it is. I mean, this thing is fantastic.
I
It
agree.
and so Tony Clem, this bud's for you, bud. Osric Tentacles, Lotus Unfolding. I think this is the best thing they've done in of their last 3 releases. And I love their last 3 releases, but I really love this album. There's
So do I.
continuity,
It
it
made my
flows.
top list of last year. I mean, I just thought it was. I listened to it again today. I just think it's spectacular. But I just wanted to show that one right away because I knew it was going to come up eventually.
Yeah. No,
But
and once again, I see Damien Hair Metal, of course, Dream Theater, yes, Kansas. I'm glad somebody mentioned Kansas because I I remember back when I was still in high school that Kansas was a huge thing. I'm older than dirt, so Kansas. I knew that this was a progressive band, and there were a lot of bands in the middle America that were extremely progressive, and one of them because everyone used to call them the American version of Yes.
yep, Starcastle.
Starcastle.
They were those first 3 albums they did were fantastic.
Yeah, they sort of went off the rails with the 4th one. Epic Records had told them basically what they told Santana Journey and all the others, that if you don't start selling records, we're not going to renew the contract. And so they did something so poppy and so whatever. But I listen to it nowadays, and it still has those killer progressive elements. So
yeah, Yes was the band I was going to mention, but there's a question up here I thought was kind of you think they're coming in so fast I can't keep up with them. Where was it at? Somebody said something about, is Iron Maiden a progressive rock band now?
You know what? I listened to those first 2 albums, and there's a lot of progressive rock in those records. They're
In the
not
early records, I think there is.
Yeah.
I mean, they were definitely influenced by that sound. I mean, they did covers of Nectar and Genesis. They did all kinds of progressive rock covers. But I don't know, the last few Iron Maiden albums, people keep saying they're progressive only because all the songs are so long and they're double albums. But does that make them progressive?
I don't think the length of a song, if that were the case, then Metallica would be a prog rock band,
So would
because
Venom.
their songs are too long, and yeah. And so let's not go there today.
Yeah.
But let's see. Oh yeah, how about Focus?
Yeah, there's tons. I mean, there's
Jan Ackerman and the boys. I mean, they were. I think that the Europeans had a huge influence on progressive rock. Rush.
Yeah, definitely. There's no doubt that albums like 2112 was, I mean, that's a progressive rock masterpiece in my opinion.
I was talking about this with Daniel Sawblade Shaw down in Houston, and we were talking about Caress of Steel, and
That's
and
actually one of my
how
favorites.
yeah, and nobody gives that one a sniff. And as much as I like Fly By Night and Hemispheres, those are my 2 top dogs. I would have to place Caress of Steel probably 3rd, but it's so diverse and wildly intricate.
I'd throw Farewell to Kings up there pretty high too.
Yeah, and then they started cranking out the hits, and I think maybe that's where they lost some fans. But
Oh, look, hang on 1 second.
Oh,
Hey, man.
hey.
Hey. But anyhow, just continue on. Would you call Foghat? No, Foghat is definitely not progressive rock.
No, that's a hard rock band from the get-go.
And absolutely, go Flyers.
Oh gosh, they worked the Stars the other night. It was terrible.
They destroyed the Stars. That's always a good thing.
Mark Chaos Massacre mentioned Zappa. How could we not mention Zappa? I mean, Hot Rats is one of my favorite, and this is and I like Apostrophe, and I like all his stuff. It's weird and eclectic, but it's so well done that I can't deny that it's great. But it is definitely prog rock, and we should probably let Steve chime in, since he's late to the party, and we've already talked about your favorite band, Ozric Tentacles.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. The most important prog band to me isn't really considered prog by a lot of people, but Dark Side of the Moon was one of the albums that got me into music to start with.
We talked about that at the very beginning, and I always considered them they're kind of a cross. But
yeah,
I always consider them a progressive band as well.
But that was the band that got me listening to being able to listen to prog, I guess. And then as I got older, I picked up Fragile and a couple of the Yes albums, and then obviously later Dream Theater and Morelia. And I'm actually going to see one of my favorite prog bands tomorrow night. Another band that a lot of people don't consider prog, but definitely is Tool.
I think you're right. I think Tool is a progressive, has a ton of progressive elements. In fact, speaking to your point about Pink Floyd, Tangerine Dream, they basically took elements of Tangerine Dream and incorporated into rock music. Yeah. So I think that's a progressive move. No, Tool is very prog.
Yeah, especially as they've gone on. But yeah, those are the ones I loved. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten into Yes. I got into ELP for a short time. I can't stand listening to them now. I don't know what it was. I dug them for a little while, and then
I don't think there's enough guitar there.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, they are definitely more keyboard oriented. I like ELP, but I got in the right mood for it. So, and once they got poppier, I didn't. It's a lot of the prog bands got poppier in the 80s, and I get it. They had to sell records, and that was where the music was. And that's part of being progressive, is not doing the same thing over again, I guess. But
and I'm sure John's going to bring it up. But Opeth, man, what's the Opeth with
Pale Communion?
No, what's the one after that with Peacock on the cover?
Oh, Tyrannosaurus or the Sorceress.
Sorceress. So I didn't like the first time I heard it. I didn't like it, but with each listen, I liked it more and more. And now it's actually my favorite Opeth album.
Well, and do you have if you have the deluxe package, it's got a couple of tracks that aren't on the regular album that are even better.
I have the 2 CD version and the 2 LP version. So
okay, the 2 CD version has several tracks that aren't on the album.
Actually, that one too. What is it?
Pale Communion.
Pale Communion. I have the deluxe on that on CD too. That has an extra CD of stuff too.
This will go to the island with me if we have to do that. So I'm hoping there's electricity.
Well, that was their last album where there was still quite a bit of metal in it on Pale Communion. There was still some metal, but it was prog too. And then with Sorceress, there's only 1 or 2 metal riffs in the whole album. On Sorceress, it's pretty much all prog from that point.
Right. It's in fact, that's where I think Watershed, they did about half the album with clean vocals, and the other half were gurgling and gargling. And somebody just today asked me about Mastodon. I see that Alvaro.
Mastodon is the most overproduced band I've ever heard in my life. And I've seen them live. They're a local band. I've met them 5 or 6 times because every time they do a new album, they do a record event. And they do some really cool stuff. But man, their stuff is almost like Def Leppard level of overproduced. There's so many extra sounds on the albums. I like them live. I have trouble listening to them on the albums, though. There's just so much jammed into there.
I used to really, really dig them when they were heavier and more jammy, kind of like Earthless or Elder or one of those bands. But now they just their attitude and the publicized drug addiction, and they sort of laugh in our faces about it, like, we're making all this money and we're just wasting it on drugs. Reminiscent of late 70s Sabbath. But who someone could argue with me that they're a prog band too, but and we can talk about it if you want. But
and I will say with Mastodon, you have to get it on vinyl because the CDs are so badly compressed. They're really hard to listen to.
Yeah, they really need an open like an actual stereo that plays actual records.
Yeah,
because I see people listening to that stuff on their phones or on a small system, and it just doesn't do it justice.
So we got um, several more comments than I keep up with, but what about Pendragon or Crazy World of Arthur Brown? I don't know that Crazy World of Arthur Brown was all that progressive. They were definitely weird, but they did give birth to.
I think it was just hard psych. When was
Yeah.
that? 69 when that came out.
Yeah, but then from that band came Atomic Rooster, which definitely is kind of a prog band. So, and I love Atomic Rooster. So yeah, and then the next comment was Sabotage.
Sabotage, 100%. Well, they went kind of prog, kind of operatic. They just went straight experimental after Hall of the Mountain King. With each album after that, they got more and more experimental, and a lot of it. I mean, I love all those albums, but it's definitely. The debut, Hall of the Mountain King, are the two that I pull out constantly.
Yep, the Sirens and the other. Led Zeppelin. I don't know about that.
We also mentioned this one. Everybody's.
I really like that album. The follow-up is my favorite Dream Theater album. I think is it Awake or Awaken? I can't remember the title.
Yeah,
but it's got the song "The Mirror" on it. I think that song "The Mirror" is the best song that they ever wrote.
See, when I got this album, I was really into these guys. I bought the album before and liked it. It was different vocalist, obviously. And then the next album was great. And then they did like that kind of EP with all the covers stuff on it. Thought it was great. But then as they went on, I just started losing interest. Then I saw them live a few times, and man, I saw them live once and they were good. I saw them live the second time. I can't remember, it was some festival they were playing, and they lost the audience. Man, people were just getting up and leaving. And
Kansas was like that when I saw him.
Even I did. I was like, I mean, the vocalist walked off on stage and he wasn't there for another, 15 minutes. Yeah. I went and got a drink and came back. It was just, as much as they were up there jamming, they were boring.
I will say, not the most recent album, but the one prior with the robot on the robot face on the cover and the skulls. I think that's the best album they've released since the 90s.
Led Zeppelin,
they were talking about, John.
They got more progressive, but they definitely started off as a blues band, basically.
Who's that?
Led Zeppelin.
Oh yeah,
but let me show you a few that this is actually, I never even heard of this band until last year. I mean, this is a band that I learned about from this show when we had Saxon's drummer on here, Nigel, and we were talking progressive rock with him, and he's like, "Hey, check out this band," and I was like, "Okay," and I wrote, as you usually do, which you see us all over here writing stuff when people mention something we don't know, and I really
like the chocolate bar thing.
Yeah, it's a PFM, Primatia Forneria Marconi. So I mean, I've since added several of their albums to my collection, and so far I've enjoyed them all.
Sorry, John, with the robot hand holding the skull.
It's
over time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's the name if anybody's interested.
Premiata Forneria Marconi. There's a pretty wide sweeping progressive element in Italy and that area, including one of my favorites, Virus. Look them up, and they're really they tried to add vocal elements, and then they just went back to the instrumental stuff. But it is a killer mixture of rock and jazz. And if you can find it on vinyl, snap it up because they're really super hard to find.
I love a lot of the Italian prog, the German prog from the 70s.
I highly recommend this one. I mean, that chocolate one, whatever I just did with it, I just threw it off to the side over here. Here it is. This thing is fantastic. I mean, really, really good. I mean, it was, like I said, Saxon's drummer was one who recommended this album, so it was the first one I purchased, and yeah, it's really well done progressive rock. I was very impressed, so I've been starting to do more. I actually looked up. I knew Rolling Stone did a 50 of the greatest progressive rock albums of all time, and PFM was on that list. Of course, Yes and Genesis were on that list, and Pink Floyd was actually at number 1 with Dark Side of the Moon. Not that Rolling Stone is, the be all and end all of rock stuff, but it was a good list.
Was it? Did they mention Soft Machine?
Nope, not that I recall. They didn't.
Are you familiar with Soft Machine?
Yeah,
I'm not. I know the name, but I don't know their music well enough to say I'm familiar with them.
Once again, they were kind of the pioneers of that German movement of of fusion between jazz. They were like Passport without so much saxophone, and they are so Soft Machine, and their albums are up and down. Some of them are
Yeah, I was about to say
extremely,
they're a really weird band because they would put out a
yeah,
great album. They just put out something that you can't listen to, you
just a
know?
complete
Yeah.
garbage bin. How about, have you heard of these guys? Easter Island,
Yep.
another trip into just some serious prog, and I know that we're talking about rock, so how about
I
Dust?
love Dust. I love both of those
Well,
albums.
I
Dust.
like this.
I searched everywhere to finally have original pressings of both of those. It took me a
Yeah,
couple
good
of
luck.
years.
You're gonna have to remortgage your home.
Oh, I have them now. I actually found both of them for under $50 too.
Wow.
Amazingly.
Have you heard of Steve Hillage?
I know that name. I've never heard it.
Great guitarist. He's
He
probably,
was in a band, wasn't he?
yeah, he's in a band called The Orb.
Okay,
And
yeah. I knew, yeah.
he does, in fact, he and his wife started The Orb, and with Alex Patterson, and they just did a remix. They did an album with David Gilmour a few years ago, and it's really kind of cool because they're more of an ambient band. But
Yeah.
the Hillage albums like Shaved Fish and then the Green Album, really progressive, but more on the rock side. And as you delve into Steve Hillage, you're going to find branch tree that go everywhere into that genre. We'd already mentioned, and I know I'm just throwing these out, but we'd already mentioned, yes, that
Yeah.
this Tormato, I blew this thing off, and what's the one with the guy's backside hanging out? Go for the one. The
Go-
Yes album after this one,
Going for the one.
Going for the One. I completely waved these things off, that and Relayer.
I
And
love Tormato. It's one of my favorite Yes albums.
I
I know it's
circled
not
back
favorite.
around, and I think I agree with you, Scott. I think that's one of my favorites. It's less produced, but it's more like a jam in a studio than it is about, well, let me come up with a couple of songs here and let's play them. It's more of a jam session. So that's what I really dig.
Yeah, Gary, I was going to bring that one up. I forgot about the show tonight, so I didn't pull any records. But when Scott brought this up, the first thing I thought about was Porcupine Tree. I just found out about them 5 or 6 years ago, and that's become one of my favorite bands. They don't have a bad album or EP. Everything that they released has been good.
Yeah, they're on my list of stuff here too.
Well, and go ahead. Oh yeah.
Now I can't like get into deep about these guys. I'm fairly new to them. I only have like 2 or 3 of their albums. Just picked this one up recently, so I've been listening to it quite a bit. But really like this band. Very different. If you're looking for Genesis Part 2, it's not that at all. Very
well,
unique.
and it's got some of the earlier albums have Alan Holdsworth in them, and it's really good. Oh, he's on there. Okay, good. That's a cover I'm not familiar with. So,
Russian. Yep.
Yeah, but that Gong is a great band.
Here's another up and down band, though. I just happen to have this one sitting here. Have you checked out Spock's Beard?
I have.
Yeah. They're on my list as well here.
Yeah, they've got some albums that are 9 out of 10, amazing, and then they've got some that a couple songs in, you're like, what is this? But they're another band that puts out a record like every year, and they just have so much out,
I basically made a list, and I came up with some of the, like you said, we've talked about Kansas already, but I think Leftovers is one of the best prog albums of all time.
I tell you what, though, I just saw them a few years ago too, and they opened for Lynyrd Skynyrd. I went to see Lynyrd Skynyrd. It was actually Rossington's last show before he died. It was like 6 months before he died, and man, so they started off with one of their hits. I don't remember which one it was. And then they did like this 15-minute prog wankery that was putting everybody to sleep. They did another one of their hits. They did another 15 minutes of prog, no vocals, just prog noodling the whole time. And then they finished up with one of their hits, and that was it. My daughter fell asleep. She was with me. She passed out during the show. I was wishing she was awake so I could get up and walk away because it was so bad. They were playing great. It was just so boring. and everybody was bored. People were getting up and leaving and going standing in line for shirts. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, that was Dream Theater when I went to see them that one time. It's not that they're a bad band or we're putting on a bad performance. It's just the choice of songs. So
Yeah, I think that early on, that the first two Kansas records that had some, the Cheyenne anthem and some of those noodling "Song for America," whatever. Yeah, Birth Control. I showed that Embryo because that's what spawned Birth Control. That part of that German, once again, that German prog rock. I mean, they call it krautrock. I don't know if we can say that here without getting someone offended, but that's what they call it. But yeah, Birth Control is another killer band.
let me
But
show you
yeah,
three more that
I
includes-
love Kansas. I'll go to my grave with Kansas holding high accolades.
Another
Even
one
their
worth-
newer stuff is still killer.
Another one worth checking out if you guys haven't is a band called Jane. It's another krautrock band that was
Yep.
progressive hard rock. Their hard rock stuff from the mid '70s is fantastic. It's so good. Every time I get one of their albums, I'm blown away that they're not a bigger band than they are.
I've got 1, 2, and 3, and I think that they're all serviceable. Oh, Eloy, I didn't even think
I forgot
about that.
Eloy, yeah. And they're
That's
still
ano-
putting out
That's
good
another
albums.
one.
Can't go wrong
That's
with any of
another
their
one, Steve. That you don't know what you're gonna get. You're either gonna get amazement or you're gonna get like, what the bleep is this?
I've got like
Is it-
7 of their albums, and I like them all.
I like all their '70s stuff. And
Yeah, but they have like 20 albums out.
yeah, they got a ridiculous amount of albums out. But
Well, they're like Hawkwind. They put out an album every 6 months. You know,
Yeah.
it seems like.
I actually
Yeah,
had
there's one we haven't mentioned.
Hawkwind.
Hawkwind.
Yeah, Hawkwind. I always
Yeah.
thought Hawkwind was more of a psych band than
No, I
I-
think once they hit what is it, Astonishing Sounds, I think they right about then they started going. As soon as Lemmy left, they started going more prog. I think.
But do you think here's the comparison I always hear is that Osric Tentacles is like Hawkwind, and I completely disagree.
I haven't heard
Right.
Osric Tentacles.
What? I'm just kidding. Well, I'm sending you.
just send them that compilation you gave to me because I was hooked after that.
Okay, I'm sending you 4 files that you need to download,
Okay.
and then you just talk to me about it next week.
I think we talked a little bit about this band, but I mean, these guys are huge.
I'm so hit or miss with King Crimson. Their debut has one of the greatest rock songs of all time on it, and the rest of that album is boring as shit.
Yeah.
They've got albums. I like that album. They've got albums like I can't listen to.
Yep,
This
I
is kind
agree
of-
with you.
When I received not too long ago, it's a bootleg King's X. There's another one, King Crimson.
Hey,
Yeah.
speaking of King's X, somebody told me that King's X was a prog metal band. I'm like, I don't think so. Are the Beatles prog? Because they sound like the Beatles to me.
No, they're way too heavy for the Beatles.
That would
Well,
be
they're a
these
heavier
guys.
version.
These guys
They may have
sound like the Beatles.
Yeah. Camel. Doggone it. I forgot
Oh,
about
I
Camel.
forgot about Camel too. Yeah.
Damien
I
hair
forget-
metal out of the fires.
Camel's actually on that one. Camel album was on that 50 greatest albums from
I
Rolling Stone.
love the
Moon Dance.
I love Camel through about 77. Same thing with Nectar. I love the second and third Nectar albums are my favorite, but the first one's really good too.
Yep, I agree.
That's funny. 'Cause that's what I was going to
Yeah.
show next.
That's great. If you're gonna
Recycle,
start,
always been my favorite. It is progressive, but it also is proto industrial rock as well.
yeah,
Industrial metal.
you're exactly right.
Nectar's
Uh,
really funny though because their UK and their US albums are always slightly different. Like one
Yep.
will have a longer intro than the other one will, but it's on different songs. It's really weird the way they do it.
Mixes, different mastering, different labels. Yeah, they're very this, and that's why I have two different versions of this because they're a little different. They're not hugely different, but I like them both.
You're holding
So
them
anyhow,
different.
and a little
I like
bit-
the European
Well,
versions
not
of those.
really.
I always try to
I
find
know I'm holding them straight up. That's the way they are.
Oh, okay.
But- Yeah, one of them sideways and one of them's not. So anyhow, and one of them comes with a poster, and one of them, and that's a non-gatefold, and the other one is a gatefold. So, how about what do you think of this band?
I've talked about him. That's the best live show. I've seen him 3 times in the last 2 years,
is that
and
Gojira?
all 3 of those are the 3 best shows I've been to. Let's go,
Yeah,
Jira,
Yeah,
for those listening.
yeah.
We're getting into more of the heavier stuff. How about
Yeah, I think they're more power metal in my.
Yeah,
Right.
they're kind of a mixture of power metal and prog.
I do
But,
like Brainstorm. I just think they're more power metal than prog.
Now this is more progressive than
Yeah, Kevin was just telling me about them after you were telling me about them. It's
Isn't
the
that
same
the same
singer, right?
vocalist as Brainstorm?
same vocalist in both bands, and they
Yeah.
both. I love both these bands, so I play them. I play these guys a lot, both of them. So this just came out on vinyl just now for the first time. This one just came out last year, I think.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, Chris, the first time I saw Gojira was at the Welcome to Rockville Festival in Daytona. There were like 40 bands there, including Metallica, Anthrax, Slipknot. I mean, there were so many bands. Gojira blew them all away. They were by far the best band that weekend.
Well, since you're talking heavy, anybody?
Oh,
Death?
yeah, definitely. Especially
Death
that
Feeling?
album.
Yeah.
And actually, what did I just find? Speaking of which,
It's probably my favorite Death record. I know people want to go Scream Bloody Gore or whatever, spiritual healing, but I don't know. I love Human.
I left one sitting over on the floor over here. How about this one? This one nobody's talked about yet either.
I saw Uriah Heep mentioned somewhere.
I got two to show.
Oh, that's Gentle Giant? Sorry, I saw the cover. It almost looked like a Uriah Heep record.
Oh yeah, this is Gentle Giant.
Yeah, that's the only album of theirs I really like, though, is that one.
Yeah.
Really? I like a lot of their stuff.
I haven't really liked the other albums of theirs I got, but I did want to mention this one because I do a live stream with this guy every week.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Project Gemini. Have you heard them, John?
No.
So the guy behind this, Mark, was in Pile Driver. He toured with Pile Driver for 7 or 8 years. And then he does prog music now. The drummer on here is in, he's been in Sham 69. He's been in Visage. He's been in a bunch of the UK bands, like the 80s, the 80s power pop and new wave bands. And he plays drum. I think Mark does bass on here too. Just really killer prog, though. He does it all through Bandcamp, and every one of his albums sells out before in the pre-orders. So, And then this is not the most prog album from this band, but what about these guys?
Yep,
I think
Especially
they got
their last two albums.
They got markedly proggy after Sanity Obscure.
Well, this one, I think this is really where you start to hear it a lot, and then the two follow-on albums are pretty much straight up prog metal. But
yep, I don't disagree with that at all, and that's a fantastic release. It sounds.
Hey, Alvaro Villatoro said early Journey, of course, but he also said Pestilence.
How about Symphony X? I'd agree. I think Symphony X is definitely power metal mixed with prog.
Okay, so how about this elephant in the room? Tomb Mold.
That's what I was looking for. I finally
this is my album of the year, quite frankly. But they actually have horns on this. Horns, and I don't mean horns. I mean like horns, like the Tower of Power, and it sounds cool. It doesn't sound like, oh gosh, why did they just put horns in there?
Here it is.
This has elements of jazz fusion. It has, I mean, dude, I love this record. This is 2023 album of the year, and as part of that, yeah, mine's a funky color too. Are you familiar with these guys, Steve? Lunar Chamber.
No, I've seen that album though. Somebody was telling me.
This is members of Tomb Mold and others. So you
can
need
tell
to
it's
pick
the same
this
artist
up.
that did the artwork.
Yeah, you need to pick this up. It's brilliant.
Let's see what else.
Yeah,
Is early journey? Oh, speaking of early stuff from bands, though, what about the early April Wine? Is very prog.
Yeah,
the early stuff is the early 70s stuff is. They definitely went to a more hard rock AOR style as they moved along. But
Styx in the early 70s.
Their 70s stuff was more hard rock than prog. I love their 70s stuff is my favorite though. All the stuff on what's the label? Nickel.
Oh yeah, Wooden Nickel.
Wooden Nickel. Thank you. I love the Wooden Nickel albums.
Yeah, I think when you start mixing keyboards into rock music, kind of like because Scott already mentioned Deep Purple. They have some proggy elements, but Uriah Heep, Blue Oyster Cult, dude, I love that band, Threshold. They are killer band. Fates Warning.
Yep, somebody mentioned Fates Warning. Fates Warning is odd because they didn't start off as a prog band either.
No,
I mean, those first 3 albums are the first 2 albums are almost Iron Maiden worship, which I love those 2 albums.
After No Exit,
it's really weird how a lot of prog metal bands move into more pop or into hard rock, and then for some reason death metal bands do the opposite. They go from death metal to prog for some reason. It's
right.
fun. Oh, did you show? Oh my gosh. Oh, Scott. We've been talking about them. They just started touring again.
I don't know.
Norwegian progressive metal band.
Extol.
Thank you, Extol.
Yeah, I mean, it depends which album you're talking about. I mean,
that last album that they did is straight up prog metal, and that album's a 12 out of 10.
Yep, that album's brilliant. I love it, and it's definitely. I always describe it as if Yes was doing death metal.
Isn't that kind of weird though that we admire the death metal band, say Opeth or Extol, that goes from that heavy harshness into something a little more delicate, and it's almost like they've learned how to play fast and heavy, and now they're almost showing off, because I think it takes a real. I mean, not that it doesn't take skill to play Led Zeppelin or anything, but it's just weird that you're right. Like a lot of the Swedes have. I mean, look at Therion, look at Sentenced, look at all that early.
Amorphous is another one.
Amorphous is another one.
That's a great example too.
I mean, they all kind of melded their sound to a more progressive.
And actually, that Amorphous too. What's the one with the bees? The bees on the cover. Amorphous lost me for a while, and they put out maybe 2 albums ago. It's yellow and black with like the bee hive thing on the cover. Fantastic album. Yeah, Voivod was all over the place, man. Voivod is one of the craziest bands. And they went from pretty brutal thrash to regular thrash to hard rock to progressive hard rock, back to thrash to progressive thrash.
Yeah, I like Dimension Hatros.
Yeah,
because it's still vibing on that metal progression, but The Outer Limits might be one of the best rock records ever made.
Yeah. I love their rock stuff.
This is one of my favorites right here. I play this thing all the freaking time. It is so damn good.
Oh, The Wake?
Yes.
I agree. That it's killer.
There's going to be a special release of this on Record Store Day this year. A double album with a etching on the 4th side, and should be pretty cool.
Let's see, Fraser's asking Oceans of Slumber. You want to talk about crazy? This is Dauber Beverly and his crew. Dauber Beverly was the drummer of Insect Warfare, and if anybody knows Insect Warfare, that's not slow, delicate drumming. That is fast as you can go, and yet Oceans of Slumber is heavy, ambient. It could be deemed prog rock, I guess, but it's more on the heavy side, the more doom, I would say.
I just showed them.
I know. There's the Galactic Cowboys.
But I was looking for this. It was next to me. I just finally found it. So
is that a box set, Scott?
The Beatles of Metal. Yeah.
It's the Metal Blade Years. It's got 5 albums on it.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, here's the back of all the songs.
Someone's mentioning Marillion from the Canadians.
Yeah. The first.
Oh yeah, Marillion's on my list too. Marillion was not Canadian. Marillion was UK.
Oh, was that where the UK?
Yeah.
My bad.
They're definitely UK, but yeah, they're another band that I listen to a lot. What was a band the other day you and I were talking about? Man, we're just listing bands now. You and I were talking about, Steve, that you were like, I'm not really into them, from Canada, because I told you I was going to send you a single. You remember that?
No.
And then
how about a band? Yeah. Oh, what? Gosh.
I think I have the single sitting right here somewhere. So, but anyhow,
I can picture their album cover.
The other band that keeps coming to my head that I keep forgetting to say is Saga from Canada.
Okay.
To me, Saga, most of their stuff is more prog light. That's what I like to call it. What's that?
Prism.
Prism. There you go. That's the band I was thinking of.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't call Madros. I love Madros. I wouldn't call them progressive though. I kind of get what you're saying though.
Yeah, I love Madros. He should be having a new.
I mean, I love them, but I mean, are they really progressive?
They're tech death or tech thrash, I think.
Yeah, they started off more death, but now they're more of a thrash band. But either way, I like it all. So
speaking of tech thrash, though, what about the last two Coroner albums? Smile was definitely a progressive album.
It was a big departure from the earlier stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Flotsam and Jetsam, like Drift.
Yeah,
I think that was more like straight up metal at that point. I actually saw him on that tour. Was that like 95 when that one came out? Yeah, that was more just like straight up metal. I think they were lost at that point in their career. Thrash had kind of died down and they didn't know where they were going.
Howling Sycamore, and that's one I don't know, so I'll be writing that down, looking into it.
If it's got Jason McMaster, it's probably pretty good though.
That was exactly what I was thinking.
He's got so many bands that are so good.
Let's see here. Yeah, Madras kick ass. Yes, they do. We've had Tanner on the show at least a couple times, I think. We'll bring him on again when the new album's coming out. Do you know Winger is considered prog?
Well, just because Rod Morgenstein played in them doesn't mean they're prog.
I don't know what happened with the Winger. You used to be able to, I mean, like 5 years ago, you could buy the original Winger albums for like $5. They're like $100 records now. I couldn't believe that when I saw it.
Yeah.
I don't know how he got so big all of a sudden.
Traffic?
I like Traffic. I never considered them prog, though, but they got some. I mean, I guess any of those 70s bands have some of that proggy elements to it. I mean, you could actually say even Kiss did with their Music from the Elder.
Yeah, so Gary mentioned Transatlantic and Neil Morse, and another one's Flying Colors. Flying Colors is probably my favorite Neil Morse project.
Is that the one with Portnoy?
Yeah, Portnoy's in all of those, I think.
I made a list. I'll tell you some of the names on my list. We've talked about most of them, but Vandergraaf Generator, which we didn't discuss.
Mars Volta. My Vandergraaf Generator albums.
I like them. Mars Volta.
I've never liked the Mars Volta. I never got them.
Never. No, I didn't either.
Gong, Marillion, Kansas, Leftoverture, Opeth, Blackwater Park is the one I wrote down. Rush 2112, Nectar Recycled, King Crimson, PFM, Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells.
I sent you that too.
I would say that's more along the Tangerine Dream line. It's more ambient sound, movie soundtrack stuff than progressive, but
oh yeah, you're right, Gary. Yeah, that's Steve Morse, not Neil Morse in Flying Colors.
I really like that.
It's still Portnoy though.
Not just Tubular Bells, but yeah, I didn't consider him prog either. But the reason I wrote it down is because I went through that Rolling Stones list, and Tubular Bells was in their top 50 list of.
Actually, my favorite album from him isn't even Tubular Bells. I can't think of the name of it. It's got the little airplane on the cover and all the clouds.
Yeah, that's my favorite for him.
Yeah.
And then the second album, at least in the U.S., the second album was a live album of Tubular Bells, which I love that live version of Tubular Bells. Anyhow, Gentle Giant, Octopus, Pink Floyd, we talked about. Fates Warning, we talked about. I wrote down Queensryche because Queensryche was in their list, but I have never considered them a progressive rock band.
Well, after the first two albums, they were. I mean, I don't know. I think that they were. They and Flotsam and Jetsam had the same disease. They just became, I don't know.
Oh, here's another one. Flash. We didn't. Anybody mention them?
Oh,
Flash. With the original vocalist from Yes, that's the band he formed after.
Yeah.
With Yes, yep.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Have you ever heard of Malconstruct?
No.
MAL and then CONSTRUCT.
I'm gonna go grab the Flash albums real quick. I'll be right back.
Malconstruct. Check those guys out. They're like Opeth, Blackwater Park style progressive. They're local. OSI with Mike Portnoy. Yeah, I had Malconstruct, Opeth, Starcastle, Osric Tentacles. How about Grace Rooms? Have you ever heard of that? Yes,
Star
I have.
Castles are okay. I do know that, but I've never heard it.
Yep.
But I see those records all the time. Star
You would
Castles.
if you like Yes, you'll like this. It's really well done, and so is this one.
Okay, I see those from time to time. Yeah, Star Castle's a funny one because they put out a couple of really good albums, and then they put that one out with them all naked on the front cover, half naked
with their shirts off. Yeah, that was horrible.
So bad.
You know, the singer Terry Luttrell sang on the first REO Speedwagon.
Oh, really? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's the first two from Star Castle are really good.
First three, the Citadel, Fountains of Light, and the self-titled.
Yeah,
they're all brilliant.
Fountains of Light are my two favorites. I actually just listened to Citadel. It's actually over here. I just listened to it a couple weeks ago.
Hey Scott, put this one on your list. Grace Rooms, all one.
Grace
all one word. Yeah, they that Gray Vanderloo, who's the guitarist for Grace Rooms, just did an album with
Grace, Grace,
GraceRooms.
Okay.
So I had Grace Rooms, Tomb Mold, Death, Virus, Yes, Dream Theater. How about Between the Buried and Me? It's a heavy band, but anybody?
I don't even. I know I've heard them. I don't remember them. No, it's been a while.
Yeah, they're on tour. Cynic, one of our Mark Massacre from Australia mentioned them. Confessor from North Carolina. Anybody?
I should
check them out. You might like them. Then I have Fate's Warning and Queensryche, but
Cathedral is a good one too. Headbanging Zulu. I didn't even think about them. They were definitely on the progressive side of for the early on too. Well, when was their first album? Maybe 87, 88?
You know, another one, and we had the guy on our show one time, and is Triton, Blood of Kings.
Oh yeah. Well, there once again, it's kind of Rush-like. So,
well, the first two albums are definitely Rush-like, but that third album, Blood of Kings, is very much more progressive, more Dream Theater-ish in sound than the first two albums. But I like all three albums. I mean, the first album is pretty much just a heavy metal Rush, and then they got more progressive on Silent Tiger, the second album, and Blood of Kings is, I mean, it's very much in the Symphony X Dream Theater style of. Even the drummer in the band is played in projects with. He actually played in Mike Portnoy's project. He was Mike Portnoy's drummer. So,
wow,
Mike Portnoy. I don't know how he's going to be back in Dream Theater with all the other projects he's doing. I don't know how he's going to have time.
Well, I think he's just going to quit all the other projects for now. But
man, I don't know how.
Let's see.
Cathedral, or they're
there was a Cathedral that was a progressive rock band.
Or maybe
not
that's what
Cathedral with not the Cathedral with Lee Dorian.
I even think that Cathedral is kind of proggy doom metal.
Well, maybe so. I used to get the two confused, and someone said no, they're a progressive rock band, and I'm like, what? And yes, there's two Cathedrals.
I don't know the other one. I only know the
Stellar Circuits.
And yes, I agree with you, Gary Ireton. I think Evergrey are fantastic. Again, they're one of those ones that kind of cross over between power metal and progressive metal. So not too different than like a band like Threshold. Cool. Well,
how about Conception? One last one. You heard of Conception? I saw them with Threshold, and when I was in Europe once, and I think they're German. But Conception, try those guys out too. If you like Threshold, you'll love Conception.
I actually did a list too of them because Genesis has always been one of my all-time favorite bands. I love them, but
can't argue with that.
Have you ever checked out Psy John from Japan?
Yes,
kind of progressive experimental black metal,
and they're less screechy as they used. I mean, their early stuff was super.
Oh yeah. No, they've gotten more experimental and more proggy as they've gone on, but they've got some pretty cool stuff too.
So you guys are all Genesis fans, right?
I am.
What would you say?
Everyone keep. Hey.
What was your favorite Genesis album if you had to pick one?
Selling Aliens.
Then there were 3.
That's a good
Selling
one. What'd you
England by
say?
the pound.
That's a good one too.
I
I had a
mean,
hard time. I was thinking if someone asked me, but honestly, I would pick Duke. That's always been one of my favorite albums by them. I know it's got a couple of
Abacab
hits.
is great. They're all good.
Yeah. Fox, so here's my top 6. I wrote down Foxtrot, which is
Foxtrot's
only
probably number 2. I like that one too.
Selling England by the Pound, Trick of the Tail, Wind and Wuthering, Duke, and Abacab. Speaking of that, let me see if I had to move a bunch of crap because I just piled these records on top of them, which is a bad idea. I just got these in the mail.
Oh,
This is
wow.
live in Pittsburgh, 1976.
Oh, wow.
That's not right. There's no costume.
Huh? No,
What
this
do
is
you-
76. This is right after Peter Gabriel
Oh,
left.
76. I thought it said 70.
No, but here you go.
Just read it.
Because I also picked up. I got both these from Rocketdrome. The
There you
BBC
go.
session, the early stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, are we talking about the fraternity Metal Mayhem 777, the fraternity band from Australia? Because yes, I have heard of them. Now that I think about it, they have an album with a red cover. What would that
Oh,
be?
you know who we didn't mention? What about Devin Townsend Project?
Good choice, Gary. Mayhem, Metal Mayhem.
777.
What? I'm confused.
Metal Mayhem 777. Fraternity.
Oh, Bon Scott's band Fraternity. Okay, I got you.
Oh, got it. I was just confused because I guess the word.
Oh. Okay, so it is from Australia, and I am familiar with them.
I wish these guys would answer me. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. All right, we got to get going. It's already we were into this an hour, so we could probably talk about this forever. I know I can.
Okay, I'm going to leave you with two more. Creepers. You heard this project?
Yep, got it.
And we have
I
done
had a really hard time getting into it because I expected more
Rush.
guitar.
Yes, but I love that album. It's very progressive. Have you ever heard of the Jam Corrette?
Nope.
Nope, that one's a new one to me.
This is 5 professors from Montclair College in California that get together and jam every Thursday night, and they put out killer records.
That's cool.
And if you want them, you should get them. D Jam Corette.
How about The Awful Truth?
I'm not familiar with them,
I don't know that one either.
but I'm writing it down.
I think
They
you
were
made
a
that
metal
one up, Scott.
Awful Truth. This. I love this band so much. I have it on CD, vinyl, and cassette. I really love that album. It was pre-Galactic Cowboys, so they had a different guitar player, but the bass player and the I always forget who now. 2 of the guys ended up forming Galactic Cowboys, and I'm forgetting who it is now. I know it's Alan Doss. Yeah, drums. So the drums and bass player from this band ended up in Galactic Cowboys.
Alan Doss he's a huge vinyl collector. He was doing vinyl community videos back years ago too.
Yeah, he was. He still does online. I see him on Facebook all the time.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I don't know if anybody cares or not. Rather than spending a lot of money on this, it's getting reissued most likely in 2024.
Very cool.
Right on.
Yep. All right, well, I guess we need to go. So appreciate all you guys, man. I was having a hard time keeping up with the comments coming in, which is awesome.
Well, it's better
Appreciate
than crickets.
Yeah, at one point we had almost 35 people watching us live. So I mean, not that that's a huge number, but it's definitely cool that people were, getting into it and talking with us about it. I enjoyed it. I always do. That's why I like doing the show.
Sorry we missed last week. Life got in the way.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, I was swamped. I was today too, but I purposely said, okay, 3:00, I'm cutting it off and I'm going to get stuff ready for the show. So I did that today. All right. Well, for episode number 210 of the Metal Roundtable, you can view, let's see if I can do this like Rob does. You can find, I don't remember where everybody's at. Check this out. Here we go. You can follow John on Instagram at at Carcass John Art. You can follow Steve on YouTube at Harmless Rebel 868. I didn't know there was an 868. I always just called you Harmless Rebel.
It is just
And-
Harmless Rebel. When they added the @ to it, they just automatically did that for some reason.
And you can follow me on Instagram at No Life to Metal, or you can search No Life to Metal on YouTube or Scott Waters on YouTube. Any of them will get you there. So there you go. All
And
right.
by the way, you might mention that we're on one of our sponsors is MediaTek, and and you can hear us on Deep Dallas Radio, Facebook Live, and YouTube.
Yep, you sure can. And soon you will be able to see us live on the No Life to Metal YouTube channel as well. So we are
Awesome.
working on that. We are no longer on the Metal Rob channel. So
Okay, and speaking of Deep Dallas Radio, check me out on Fridays at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time for the
oh, right
Crypt.
on. I know we
Yep.
got to go, but Brother
Hey,
Lee's
what's up,
on.
Lee? Caught us
Hey.
right at the end.
Haven't heard from you in a long time, brother. Good to see you. All right. So, like I said, for episode number 210 of the Metal Roundtable, you know how we do it.
Metal
Oh,
will
oh.
prevail.
Prevail. And then
Should
they're
we
gonna
have
have to
said
do
Frog
it.
will prevail?
Rock metal
Yeah.
will prevail. You gotta have a little more hand motion because it's like proggy.
No, wait. Jazz hands.
Yeah, I just